The following video will contain content meant for mature audiences, so if I hear you laugh at the word booty once, I'm afraid you'll have to leave. Hey everybody. Now before I begin, I'm sure some of you may have noticed that parts 1 and 2 of Sunset Overdrive are gone. Well, that's because I've decided that for now, I'm no longer doing full Let's Plays of games I'm reviewing. Of course, I didn't make this decision easily, but after thinking on it, it just seemed like the right approach. This way I could turn out reviews a little faster without the pressure of having to edit each and every part / episode of a Let's Play series. This is mostly to keep myself from having that dreaded feeling of falling behind in editing, because some games go on for 20 plus hours, and though I love editing, I don't particularly enjoy editing 20 plus parts of a series if it means that the quality of each part is inconsistent, which I'm sure was obvious in some parts that I've uploaded, like with Hollow Knight. With that said, that's the only real change here on the channel. I'll still be uploading my discussion and retrospective videos. I have some in the pipeline actually, as well as the occasionals, which are kind of like Let's Plays but not dedicated ones and tend to be a little more disjointed and silly. I will also still be posting Let's Plays with friends, since those are a more casual experience and I have a different energy, similar to that of the occasionals, but not quite the same thing, if that makes sense. That said, if I feel as though I want to talk about the games I review a bit more in more detail, I'll just make a separate discussion video for it, if there's anything specific I want to talk about a thing in a game. And with that, let's get on with the review for Sunset Overdrive, starting with the story. In Sunset Overdrive, you play as yourself, an ex-Fisco employee in Sunset City, which has been freshly painted in a fresh coat of orange, thanks to Overcharge, the new fizzy drink from Fisco. Unfortunately, said drink has a side effect that turns people into zombies, monsters, whatever the hell you want to call them. They're just not friendly monsters or creatures, okay? It's up to you and some unlikely allies to have a blast in the apocalypse, and to figure out what the heck is going on, I guess, too. Now let's chug a fresh cup of graphics. Sunset Overdrive features very wacky, skater-punkish visuals in a realistically cartoony art style. That's a bit of a weird comparison there, but that's the best way I could word it. I'd go so far as to say that it's comic booky, but it's not quite on that level. The important thing is that it looks real good. The saturation of the visuals on top of the overall pop of the game makes it overwhelming on the eyes in the best way possible. It has to be one of the most colorful games I've played in years, and that's saying something. This game just oozes style, and it is not ashamed to flex it. With that said, the game does have its share of Z-fighting issues. Z-fighting being two textures on a plane that are fighting to show themselves, essentially. The flickering that you tend to see between something like a sidewalk and a street if they're overlapping each other a little bit. The game also has some rendering issues when it comes to distance, real draw distance and whatnot. But the Z-fighting doesn't happen outside of a few particular points. One specific one comes to mind for me. And the rendering issues can easily be ignored since the game doesn't have any streaming issues. So by the time you get within enough of a distance of something, then it'll either pop in fully or load in fully, whichever you want to put it. And most of the time there's stuff covering everything. If I'm being more specific and not vague, the only time you're going to see any rendering issues in that regard where things look a little low res from a distance is if you're standing up high and you're looking down at things. Then yeah, it can look a little weird sometimes. But if you're behind various buildings and there's just stuff on the horizon covering everything else, then most of the time you're not going to notice. In fact, you'll be moving too fast most of the time to notice. Again, these issues don't happen often, but they are noticeable when they do. I just figured I'd point that out to you. Also, quick side note. For some reason the game defaults to a 30 FPS refresh rate, and I never noticed or bothered to look until after I had already finished the game. So if you're playing it now or plan to, go to your settings and bump it up if you want. The 30 FPS clearly doesn't affect my judgment of the game, but I figured I should mention this here. And if you're wondering, oh, Daryl, well, then if you noticed you were running at 30 FPS, why didn't you just, check your FPS? I don't know. I just played it as it was, and I didn't have a problem with it. I came from consoles. I didn't get a PC until a few years ago. So for me, 30 FPS, so long as it's consistent, which it's very consistent. In fact, I didn't have any drops at all, even at 30 frames. I didn't mind it. Didn't bother me. That said, 60 FPS from what I did play after the game, after I did notice it, looks real good. It looks really nice, and it makes me angry that I didn't switch it sooner. That's how good it looks. So that's a positive thing. Let's put it that way. Moving along, let's crack open a can of sound.
What is that?
It's a glider. Once I'm over the walls, I'm going to expose Fizco's lies and make them pay for what they've done.
You really think it'll fly?
I know it will, as soon as I make a few more adjustments to the launch mechanism. Wrench. Okay, I need you to lift up the carriage a bit more.
Like this?
Now keep it there while I tighten this. Don't let go.
I might have to let go.
Surprisingly, with how chaotic the game can get sometimes, it's rare that you'll find yourself getting lost in all the sounds going on around you. Each one is distinct and easy to pick out. This goes for your weapons as well, which are varied. I don't have any complaints here in regards to sound, so I think we should just move on to music. I come from a very biased place since I love punk and rock music in general, so feel free to disregard what I have to say about the music if you don't like it, but man, do I love the soundtrack of this game. It just makes me want to get up and move and rock out, which is actually the attitude of the game itself, really. But I won't dwell on music too long, so let's tackle the big boy here and talk about gameplay. Sunset Overdrive is a third-person shooter, but also a platformer. If you've played Ratchet & Clank before, then this sounds familiar, or at least it should. Same developer. You start by creating your character in a character creation screen, though you can make any changes you want to make down the road, even coming down to the sex of your character and whatnot. You can just do it on the fly. It's awesome. And before you know it, you're off on your adventure. The game primarily features grinding as a way of getting around Sunset City, but it has a few other methods of travel as well, including fast travel. The only thing it doesn't have is a sprint button, which, despite how fun it is to whiz and zip around the city, it was grating at first to not be able to at least sprint to my next jump point or whatever when I wanted to hop onto a grind rail. That said, you get other movement abilities as the game goes on that makes up for it, but for the first hour or two, it'll feel a little awkward if you're expecting to move faster than Sonic on foot, or at least move faster than a light jog. When it comes to combat, the game constantly reminds you to stay off of the ground and keep on the move. During combat, since the ODs, the creatures in the game, have a habit of swarming you when you're on the ground. At first, it can be tricky to get the hang of it, but once you do, dear God, is it satisfying. Add to that the game is very challenging too. Like, you'd think this game would be a breeze, but I often found myself struggling to stay alive whenever I slowed down even a little bit. Which then led to me seeing the varied respawn animations made for you when you die. And let me just say, those are a real treat to look at. I love those. More games need to do that. Which reminds me, don't take this game too seriously, because it sure as hell isn't. If you're looking for a serious story, or one that at the very least takes itself seriously to the point where you can expect down moments for character development and the like, you won't be getting it here. The game loves breaking the fourth wall, making pop culture references, referencing other games, breaking the fourth wall some more, taking the health bar off screen to stab someone with it, making one-off mechanics that you'll never see again, and just outright saying, yeah, we know we're a video game. Yeah, we know we don't make any sense. And yeah, you're gonna love us. It has a very in-your-face attitude when it comes to its story and characters that stretches into the gameplay as well. There is never, and I can say that adamantly, never, a dull moment in the game, and I absolutely adored it. But I should probably mention a few things that bugged me before wrapping up this review. So there are a few bugs that I found while I was playing the game, ranging from sound to an enemy straight up not appearing. The sound bugs occurred when you'd watch a tutorial for a weapon in the weapon shop, and the enemy one is one I've only encountered once during a fight towards the end of the game in a bunch of chaos. These bugs are very few, but I figured I should mention them anyway before I give my verdict. Speaking of my verdict, if it wasn't clear already, this game is a go for it. It's wacky fun with a good amount of replayability and plenty of content to play through. Even after the main story is done with side quests, activities, and challenges, and DLC I may or may not cover in an update review. If it changes my opinion of the game, this game is worth it. If you're looking for a fun game that doesn't take itself too seriously, with highly engaging gameplay, and doesn't overstay its welcome, then Sunset Overdrive is the game you're looking for. Sunset Overdrive is available on the Xbox One and PC, and getting down to the specifics on PC, it's on Steam and the Microsoft Store. Sunset Overdrive is also available for Xbox Game Pass, so if you got that, then what the hell are you waiting for? Pop open a can of Overcharge and OD on some fun. And no, I'm not going to apologize for that. And with that, I'm TUSDarryl. I hope you guys have enjoyed your stay. I'll see you guys next time. Later.